Hello, I'm Deborah Malone, founder of The Internationalist and host of Internationalist Marketing TV. Today's guest is Michel Quintas, Director of Global Digital Strategy and Execution at Biogen. Michel, what a pleasure to see you and finally connect with you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Deborah. It's an honor to be here.
Wonderful. Well, listen, since it's an honor, why don't we just jump right in, okay? But before we talk about your global role at Biogen, let's start with your background in marketing, because it's quite interesting that you began in product goods before moving to the health field with companies like Eli Lilly and now Biogen. Um, what did you bring from that consumer marketing side to your role at a multinational biotech company like Biogen?
Great question. Interestingly, I fell into marketing by accident. My undergraduate degree is actually in economics and finance. And one day during undergraduate, I ran into a friend of mine, and he was taking a marketing course, and he told me how interesting it was. I did a bit of research, registered for a course the following year, and I think I found my calling. Well, I did find my calling. I thought I did, and I did find my calling. And then after graduating with my undergraduate, I spent some time in Japan, and I came back to Canada, and I started my international MBA. And at that point in time, I focused on marketing and arts and media administration. And that's what actually helped set me up for a career in global marketing. As I think back to my role at Kraft Foods, I'm amazed at how far ahead of the game we were at that point in time. This is back like 15, 20 years. The use of omni-channel marketing and engaging customers across multiple online and offline touchpoints. We were distributing magazines, websites, emails, leveraging third parties. And the insights that were gleaned from engaging with these customers through our proprietary like web assets. And I think one of the key learnings, which I think is common knowledge today, is if we have customers engaged through multiple channels, their loyalty to our brands will increase. And finally, the importance of innovation, not being afraid to fail. And if you fail, fail fast. Of course, this is CPG. I now work in pharma. And CPG doesn't have the regulatory constraints that healthcare has. But I think that the fundamental ideas are the same. Respond to needs where and when the doctor and patient want it. Create positive experiences. Learn about your customers and don't be afraid to fail with the objective of learning and improving. Now, we just need to work within the constraints we have. And my approach is if someone says, no, it can't be done, my response has always been, well, how can we make it work? And then try to get that person become part of the solution.
You make some very interesting points. You also make it sound a lot easier than it probably is. But sometimes I think you need to be very clear in your goals to be able to make things work. And it's interesting that you said some companies were really ahead of their time. What's interesting is that a company like Biogen works in disease areas with some of the greatest unmet needs, areas like Alzheimer's, for example. And you were talking quite a bit before about marketing and meeting needs and so on. Talk a little bit about how you communicate your focus on both patients and physicians in your own digital marketing now. And I will just admit something in that I love that your title is Global Digital Strategy and Execution. So it's nice to know that you've got both pieces of the puzzle. But really, back to this, just talk a little bit about that, because it may not be as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you mentioned Alzheimer's. I think that is the big therapeutic category that everybody's talking about today. But if we think about Biogen's heritage is in the rare disease area, right? Like spinal muscular atrophy, MS. So these disease states where ALS, for example, where it's extremely rare and it's risky. So, at Biogen, we like to say that we're pioneers, right? We're working to address the high unmet needs of patients and their families. But the reality is that many of these products do not make it to market due to the high risk and innovative nature of what we do. But when a product does make it through, it's critical that we effectively communicate to the right patient, caregivers, and physicians so that patients can have longer and healthier lives. So to your point, it's all about developing the right strategy and then executing it in an effective manner. This starts by having the right insights, understanding the patient journey, the roles that the patient, caregiver, referring physician, treaters play, and then linking that to what we like to call the learning journey. This is where they are today in terms of awareness, consideration, adoption. And then how do we move them along that journey in order to allow them to make an informed decision? And that's important, an informed decision on treatment options. And we'll talk about that later in terms of ethical practices. But once we understand this, we can develop the message, the content, and determine the appropriate media and channels that will help us engage our audience. Ultimately, we need to communicate with our customers on their terms and in the channels they are today. And if we think about my role, I work at the global level. I work with the global teams. There's a lot of strategy discussions. But other members of my team, and we're spread out around the world. We have people in Asia, they cover Latin America and Europe. We work very closely, like day to day with the individual affiliates, and we help them. We help them with content. We help them with functionality. So we work all the way down from the global down to the local level to execute and then report back on those campaigns.
No, it's interesting that you mention the global role, because you've certainly lived a global life. You alluded to that in the beginning about Japan, and maybe we'll have time to even touch on what you did there. But what do you find are some of the biggest challenges in working with so many markets? I mean, I realize, as you say, pharma has its restrictions and so on, but we have a global audience, and I think that this is one of the issues in both messaging and nuance, that's critical.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I tend to have early and late night meetings. And I say that partially in jest, but there is an element of truth to it, which I'll touch upon shortly. But I think I look at the challenges from two primary perspectives: technology and people. From a technology perspective, I look at the digital ecosystem and level of digital capabilities. The ecosystem in China is vastly different from what's used in the rest of the world. In China, everybody's on WeChat. It's like a centralized app that contains all the different sub-applications, payments, messaging, travel, food, that in the rest of the world live independently on our phones. We have like a Uber, Apple Pay, SoundCloud. So the digital strategy in China is different from what we do in Europe. That being said, we are seeing apps like WeChat, Line, Alipay now being used more and more outside of China, especially if we think about Asian HCPs in North America. And I also, from a capabilities perspective, like I look at the resources and sizes of the countries. So, for example, what I can do in Brazil and Germany is vastly different from Switzerland, Argentina, or Singapore. What we need to do is develop master, customizable campaigns and content and functionality that we can then roll out to the various countries based on their needs and where they are from a technology perspective. From a human perspective, I see the world as I guess, cultural mosaic, right? So each country is a distinct color and an overall canvas that we need to understand and work with. Cultural nuances and ways of working are different in Brazil, Germany, and Japan. For example, in Japan, it's all about nemawashi, relationship and consensus building. We recently approached the Japanese affiliate in order to discuss the feasibility of consolidating all their disparate websites and online assets into one digital ecosystem. But we realized that we we could not go in there alone, and we needed an invitation, a buy-in. We needed somebody to vouch for our credibility, to help open the door and initiate the discussions. And so I reached out to a colleague of mine who was former director in Japan. And I approached him and I said, no, Taka-san, can you help me? This is what I want to do in the Japanese market. And asked him for his support in engaging and working with the Japanese affiliate. So we explained the program, he was supported, facilitated the introductions. And once we were able to get the appropriate support through the organization, the implementation was surprisingly fast. In Japan, has been like one of our fastest and strongest performing countries globally from a registration perspective and engagement perspective. And they have their own way, they have different tactics. Yet when we think about our overall goals and objectives of registrations and engagements, they're doing phenomenally well. But then I think finally, and touching back to my earlier point about, I have say 6 a.m. meetings and 8 p.m. meetings at time, and hopefully not both on the same day, it's about taking care of oneself, right? In this type of role, you can work 27 hours, 24 hours a day, not 27 hours. No matter how much I try, I can't get to 27 hours a day. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No, I tell my team, set boundaries. Make time for yourself and family. If you have a 6 a.m. meeting with Europe or an 8 p.m. meeting with Japan, take the time off during the day. Do what's important to you. Play music, work out, take a nap. Take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. And I think it was Stephen Covey that said this, if you don't sharpen the knife, it'll get dull. And you need to take care of yourself first. So technology, the human perspective, and then finally taking care of yourself is, I think, the way to be successful in a global role like I have today.
That's interesting, because I wonder if we would have put the self part in before COVID. I think that has really changed our perspectives in a more balanced manner. Let's put it that way. But you also mentioned something else that I found. You alluded to it earlier, and you're involved with a digital center of excellence. And I know you believe, as one of your personal philosophies, that innovation lives everywhere. Tell us a little bit about that digital center of excellence.
No, absolutely. What I think right now we live in a time where cost constraints are a fact of life. Gone are the days of the multi-billion-dollar products, and the money was just free and flowing. One thing that has been consistent, though, since then is we need to ensure consistency of messaging around our brands. You can't have a country go off and have their own messaging. You need to have consistency and look and feel all around the world. Our digital center of excellence is like a centralized global organization comprised of Biogen Link, which is our health professional portal, our digital capabilities, a digital factory, and strategy and execution, the team that I lead. We work closely with the global brand teams. We work with local affiliates to develop and roll out global campaigns, digital functionality, and help affiliates develop and grow their digital capabilities. But by centralizing the development of campaigns and functional capabilities, we're able to leverage scale and amortize the cost across multiple countries. As a result, we can develop creative and functionality that many of the medium and smaller sized countries would not develop on their own, and save costs and improve speed to market. We are currently launching an SMA campaign, and it was kicked off just over a month ago, and we're already in the localization phases in 8 countries around the world. And it's a consistent messaging, look and feel. Obviously, the tactical and execution is different by countries based on their approach and their market, but this really improves the speed to market. And then we also support cross-pollination, which talks a bit about, innovation lives everywhere, right, at the local level. If we see a local campaign or approach that works well, we encourage the affiliate leads to share the initiative with other countries via our global forums, and encourage the borrowing/stealing ideas. Like, why do we reinvent the wheel? So innovation, it can be a person, it could be a team, a partner, such as a patient advocacy group, an online advocate. What's critical is we need to develop and nurture culture that listens more, talks less, and is open to new ideas and testing, piloting in order to move forward. And a big important piece here is not to have the fear of failure. You know, if you run a campaign, as long as the fundamentals and the objectives are clear and you have a good reason for doing it, if you fail, that's okay. But what did you learn from failing? How can you take that failure and either, you know, relaunch, adjust, and go back out? Because I feel that oftentimes people look for big, huge solutions, right? And in my experience, it's the baby steps that win the race, that will eventually get you to where you want to go. Because baby steps, you can course correct, you can make adjustments, measure, optimize. So yeah, innovation lives everywhere. We just need to listen.
It's interesting that you say that because it sounds like you might have been able to figure out how to manage that balance between whether it's top down with the centralization of some of the ideas and maybe the bottom up with some of the localized innovation and so on. Do you want to talk any more about that, or have you really kind of covered that in the center of excellence?
Well, I'll admit it is a challenge, right? It is a challenge to manage the two because that we are all unique, right? And we all have different needs, and each country has different needs, different cultural context, different business context. I think that, my role is to have a global approach and offerings that leverage economies of scale and have a consistent look and feel, but still allows for localization that reflects the country's culture and specific business needs. So we've recently launched a global webinar that involves a series of KOLs that speak on a specific topic in SMA. Now, it's been adopted by many countries around the world, except for one of our major countries, Germany. Well, why not? Why was it not accepted by Germany? It wasn't accepted by Germany because one of the key opinion leaders in Germany is German, and then the affiliates say, well, why am I going to have these non-German speakers when I have my own superstar? I might as well take that superstar and present him myself. So they are not participating. However, they are leveraging those capabilities, right? So if I think about like our global to local approach, we have Biogen Link, like a healthcare professional portal. And so we started with commonalities in terms of tech stack, in terms of functionality and content. The platform is modular based on templates that can be easily adapted for the local market, language, visuals, functions. So the German affiliate, given that it has the same functionality, the framework for the webinars, be it if it's being launched in France, Germany, or Brazil, has the same back end and framework. So they just need to go record the doctor and then launch it on their own. So that's how we've been able to, leverage scale, but still maintain a level of customization and localization for the countries.
Well, I think that was a very diplomatic answer, and I think that even Germany will agree to that. Let's move. You've talked quite a bit about internal structure.
Mhm.
Let's look a little bit now outside,
Mhm.
because certainly we alluded to COVID, and I think that we'll probably allude to COVID for decades. But obviously, customers, consumers' expectations of brands have changed since the pandemic. Um, what do you see as some of the most fundamental changes that affected your role at Biogen?
Yeah, great question. Um, I think that, and if we think about the environment that I work in, and let's call a spade a spade. Many of the physicians are older, right? They're older physicians, and that's changing. We're seeing more and more younger physicians coming into the marketplace, more diversity, which is awesome. But also physicians that have grown up with the internet, that have grown up with instant access to information. So what I've seen is that COVID, I think, has adopted or accelerated the adoption of digital across all elements of healthcare and life. Expectation is to get the answers to the questions we're looking for in the click of a mouse. And if we as an organization, we don't provide an answer in a relevant or timely manner, somebody else will. And if we think back to my earlier comment about multi-channel and being in front of the physician or the customer, if we don't respond to the physician in a timely manner, then and we don't become the leading point, somebody else will drive the narrative, somebody else will drive the story. And this is especially true if you think about pharma, where unlike Coke, for Coke, changing the color of the Coke can is innovation, right? For us, but the Coke product has been Coke for longer than I've been alive. But we have a very short runway with our products. We launch our products, we have patent life, they go off patent, then off we go to try to develop a new product. So I've seen the role of the internet, instantaneous responses, go online, you Google it, and you get an answer, becoming prevalent everywhere. However, I see the pendulum swinging back a bit, right? I find that doctors, patients, individuals, myself, we miss those human interactions, right? And the benefits that they deliver. Patients are back in the doctor's offices. We are traveling and going to congresses. We're back in the office 3 days a week. And social hour is back in swing, right? So, we're all getting together. So I think, it's going to be a combination of digital and face-to-face, with digital playing an increased role in providing quick responses when needed, while face-to-face interaction will be ideal when you need to be creative, find solutions, develop relationships. So I think, overall, digital has accelerated. It's going to be playing an increased role moving forward. But I think ultimately we are human, social beings, and we need that interaction with people in order to grow, flourish, and develop those relationships.
No, you raise an interesting point, particularly about shall we say, the balance of man and machine, so to speak. Let me also explore something that's related to that. Obviously, today, many businesses talk about purpose and how they're purpose driven. Healthcare companies, of course, seem to certainly be dedicated to transforming lives and really using that goal as a guiding star. Biogen also talks about making a difference in the world beyond medicines. Now, how does that mission translate into your global digital efforts?
Yeah. Um, if we think about well, they're not a competitor, but another pharma company. And about 5 years ago, they had a campaign that was titled More Than Medicine. I think that this encapsulates nicely like what we need to do to help patients live longer and happier lives. This would imply engaging not only doctors, but nurses, therapists, advocacy groups, support workers, and payers. We need to think about, when we have a patient in front of us, it's more than just a pill that will make them healthy. It's more than just giving them Nicorettes to stop them from smoking, or taking the bottle away from stop them from drinking. It's more than just that. When we think about how would we want to approach this, we need to understand the pain points. At the local level, like, is it reimbursement? Is it finding a treater? Is it patient support services? Registering for a clinical trial, ensuring diversity in clinical trials, because we all know that bulk of clinical trials tend to be white and male, right? And it doesn't reflect the true state of the disease. Is it getting free genetic testing for ALS? And then understanding what can be done in a compliant manner that in that market to develop a digital or in many cases, sometimes some cases a non-digital solution, right? They work together. So my role in a global digital team is to develop these types of holistic solutions within the disease states, and not just sales materials and product information, but also the tools and services that go beyond. Therefore, our digital strategies and campaigns extend to helping in diagnostics, educating patients and doctors, providing patient and caregiver support with emotional and practical aspects of the disease. And this requires a carefully curated digital ecosystem and a plan for how to execute this globally. It involves us talking to patient advocacy groups, identifying online influencers, sometimes recognizing that maybe we're not the ones with the authority to talk, and then maybe it needs to be a mood disorders association. It needs to be somebody else. So I think that we need to understand our role of the medicine, and then understand what are those other complementary services that are required in order to help patients. For SMA, for example, adult SMA, yes, the medicine is important, but physiotherapists play an important role, occupational therapists play a very important role. So these are people who traditionally pharma companies did not engage with, and these are the kinds of people that this is what the doctors are looking for. These are the kinds of solutions that the doctors are looking for.
So it certainly sounds like the role of responsibility is much larger, so to speak, than it ever has been.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think that's a good thing, because it means it's not business as usual. It's about thinking a little bit more creatively and also practically, in some
Mhm.
ways. Let me ask you something else that I'm sure a lot of people will be curious about. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned in living a global life in marketing?
Um, I think that doctors are people like you and me. They watch TV. They have families. They want to make an impact in their lives. They want to help patients. Treat them as humans first. Like, I remember several years ago, I was in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, and I was doing some support volunteer work for the Donald Woods Foundation, and helping children living with HIV, and then in their Health in Every Hut program. And I remember working and being there with a doctor in one of the clinics, and a patient came into his office, into the room, that examination room that we were in. And unfortunately, given the situation, he was not able to care for her. And he went and took money out of his pocket to pay for her taxi so she can go to a bigger city and get treated. So I think that, doctors, nurses, they're overwhelmed, but they want to help people, right? And I think that we cannot be disingenuous. I think we need to come in and say, doctor, this product is right for this person. We need to be laser focused on the right drug for the right patient, so that they can help, we can build trust, and so then that the doctor can then help their patient. If we give them a product that doesn't help them, you destroy that trust. It's about trust, relationships, and helping the patients. And I will never forget that experience in doing that. And I encourage anybody, everybody, if you have some time, volunteer. Volunteer close to home, away from home. It can be heartbreaking and eye-opening at the same time. And it helps us realize how fortunate we are to be living where we are today. So.
Yeah, that is a wonderful story, and but it also says to me, even from a business standpoint, that it's actually a chain of trust. Because if you're developing a product, a drug, whatever you want to call it, a solution, and you're right, it has to, not only does it have to work, it has to be communicated properly for the things that it can and cannot
Mhm.
do. And then that the trust that the doctor has in you then
Mhm.
translates to the trust that the patient has in the doctor, and so on and so forth. It's rather interesting. Well,
Yeah.
uh, on that note, what's next for you and your work with Biogen?
Um, well, I love what I do. I love, like, obviously, the last few years I haven't had the chance to travel as much as I've done in the past. So, looking forward to traveling again, going back to Brazil, going back to Asia and Europe, meeting with people that I work with. I encourage my team to go out in the field, go see the doctor. Um, I look forward to seeing people, right? My plan is, continue to work with and helping people. That's part at the core of who I am, right? I want to see our activities grow in terms of reach, engagement, innovation, and provide answers that matter to our stakeholders, to our customers, our patients, and help people live a longer, healthier, and happier life. I think that people that are in the healthcare industry are in it for a reason, and not to disparage craft, but when I was interviewed for at Eli Lilly, they asked me, well, why do you want to come and work for a pharmaceutical company? And I said, craft in an incredible experience, incredible learnings. The work that we do is phenomenal. But, at the end of the day, I don't want to be measured by the amount of salad dressing that I sell, right? I want to talk about the campaigns that we did. I want to talk about the, men's health campaigns that we did. I want to talk about the depression. I want to talk about Alzheimer's. I want to talk about, you know, SMA. How did we help these people? How did we make a difference in people's lives? So I'm will continue what I'm doing. I will continue helping people, working globally, engaging with the Brazilians, the Germans, the all over the world. And I love meeting new people, new colleagues around the world, and learning about the cultures and eating. And love eating, definitely love eating. But my plan is to continue what I'm doing, and I don't think I'll ever retire. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what I do.
well, it sounds like you are making a difference in a lot of ways, and so we thank you. We thank you for your
Mhm.
just your personal commitment and energy and your sense of optimism. And also thank you for some of the global marketing lessons that you've shared. So
Absolutely.
all the best, and I think we'll have to stay in touch just to see what other major problems you solve.
No, well, there's a lot of those, and I want to touch on one thing before we sign off. Like, I would be remiss. I have a team of people, and they work hard, right? I would not be able to do what I do without the support of my boss, the organization, and the people that work with me. I am just one voice, and without them, I would not be able to do what I do. So I want to, a big high five to my team, and you know who you are. And thank you, Deborah, for
Oh,
giving me the
pleasure.
opportunity to talk to you, share some of my experiences. And as I mentioned, I look forward to meeting you face to face.
All right. Well, we'll just have to work on that. Okay. Do take care, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Bye now. The Internationalist focuses on the continual reinvention of marketing by highlighting inspirational marketers around the world and their ideas as they move the industry forward. Internationalist Marketing TV shares these perspectives through interviews and personal stories. Thanks so much for watching. If you find this kind of content helpful, please click like or subscribe. Again, thanks so much.